Great. All right, well, let's entertain the idea that there's choice involved in this. And it seems like you all are at least open to the possibility there's choice. If we have a choice about where to go, down here or up there around a given set of circumstances, what does that say about the circumstances themselves? They're neutral. There's a poster over there. Circumstances are neutral. I would suggest this is one of the most powerful distinctions we can make in our life. It has been for me. A lot of what Perna and I do as trainers over these next 3 days is help make distinctions and help you discover your own distinctions, powerful distinctions. For me, this is maybe the most powerful distinction in life, that circumstances are neutral. So just let that sink in for a minute. Circumstances are neutral. Just think of all the stuff in life that we suffer over, get freaked out about, go to war over, get hooked up in huge dramas over, huge conflicts in our life, feel terribly victimized by. Just take it in for a moment, that the circumstances that we're reacting to are neutral. How does that drop into your consciousness?
I resist that because...
Good. I'm glad we have an honest person in the room.
Mainly when I go to, because, I'm mainly thinking of kind of just the worst atrocities that exist in the world. Kind of
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So, obviously, some circumstances feel more neutral than others, right? And some feel a lot less neutral. And very often when I'm delivering this process, people immediately bring up the hypothetical worst-case scenarios, right? And I'll go there in a moment. Does most of the things we get all hooked up in dramas about in our life rise to that occasion? No, I don't think so. We get all twisted up about stuff that I think doesn't rise to the occasion. Daniel was just talking about certainly genocide, war, but even someone really being physically violated, right? Now, one important point here, we're not talking about children, we're talking about adults. Children need and deserve and have the right to be nurtured and protected, right? And children do get victimized, or even if they're just not protected and nurtured, that's a kind of victimization. So we're talking about adults here. But certainly we do know an adult can be violated. An adult person might get raped, right? Or beaten up. Horrible things happen in life. And this is a victimization. So when that happens to a person, they may need to have that fact that they were victimized really affirmed. That may be a strong part of the healing, to have it really affirmed, yes, you were victimized. That should never have happened. It's a horrible thing. And they may need to be held in that for a long time. And it's not for me or anyone else, I don't think, to say when they need to move on. At the same time, I think we all know that if a person who is victimized in that day doesn't find some way to transform that or own it or move on with it in their life, at some point, their life's going to remain very stuck. They could allow themselves to be crushed by that. What's an example of a woman who was victimized and went out and started an organization that's very well known in the world so this wouldn't happen to other people's children? MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? So she lost her own son to a drunk driver. Horrible tragedy. Any of us who haven't lost a child, we can't imagine what that's like, especially to have it ripped from us by someone else's unconscious behavior. And the way she took that into her life, and instead of having it crush her, she turned it into something that would be a benefit to the world, was she empowered herself and started that organization. There's lots of examples like that. But at the very least, the sense of ownership is that we acknowledge at some point, this didn't happen to Joe or John or Mary or Susie, it happened to me. And it's not that it's my fault or coming into some new age idea of how did I, no. It was a horrible violation, shouldn't happen, but it did happen to me. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to allow this to crush me, or am I going to find some way to own that this did happen in my life and I need to find a way to move forward in my life, or I'm just going to stay crushed? So it's that sense of ownership. I'll go to one more hypothetical example. How many people here have read the book Man's Search for Meaning? Viktor Frankl. Yeah. It's been translated into as many books as the Bible. It's a little old now. Not as many people are aware of it. Hopefully it'll get out in circulation again. but it's, you know, millions and millions and millions of people have read this book, and it's been a life-changing book for many people. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist, a doctor, a Jewish person in Austria who was sent to the concentration camps along with his whole family. He went to Auschwitz, one of the worst death camps in Poland. His whole family wiped out on both sides. And he's in the camps, one of the worst death camps, where people, the level of deprivation we just can't even imagine. If you've read Primo Levi's book or Viktor Frankl's book, I mean, it's unimaginable, the level of human deprivation that these people experienced. And being a psychiatrist, he was a curious person. He was a scientist, and he wanted to survive, and he was looking around him saying, who's surviving, who's not? Some people gave up quickly and died. The people in the work camps who were dying by overwork and starvation and the elements. And he looked at who's surviving. He discovered two things. He discovered that the people who were surviving had some sense of future. Even if it was only, I'm going to survive this and get out to tell the story, so possibly that'll keep it from happening to others. For him, it was he imagined himself out giving talks at psychiatric conferences, presenting his work, getting his books published, presenting his papers. That gave him a sense of future and a will to live and to survive. The other thing he discovered was even starving to death, looking like, you know, an AIDS patient, and our worst image of that, or someone's dying of hunger in Africa or something, that completely emaciated body, starving to death, naked, you know, abused, and with a gun pointed in your face. Even under that kind of extreme circumstances, we always have a choice. He personally experienced that we always have a choice. We have a choice on what attitude we're going to bring to that. And no one can take that choice away from us. So it's in that spirit that I'm suggesting we have a choice about living in this world or continually, every time we can, shifting up and experiencing our life from this perspective. And this is a context. It's like a pair of glasses. You know, we talk about context is very important in this training. We're all walking around with a context in our head. It's like a pair of glasses we walk around with. What's one of the most common distinctions between contexts that people hold in life? People are either this way and they experience life this way, or they're the other way and they experience life that way. Real common. Glass half full, glass half empty. Optimist or pessimist. Is there enough data in our lives to prove the pessimist position? Yes. Absolutely. There's no shortage of data. It's a very intelligent, reasonable position in life. How about the optimist position? Yes. Absolutely. There's plenty of data to establish and prove either position. Just depends on which data you want to look at and where you want to live. I personally choose to live in the optimist place. I think a little bit of pessimism can be healthy. It's intelligent, right? But that's a context we carry around in our head, and based on whether we have the optimist or the pessimist glasses on, we see and experience life differently, and we pay attention to different sets of data. So this is one context of ownership. This is a context of victimhood, right? So we use very highly technical language in our trainings, and we call this world up here, because it's above this black line, we call this above the line. And down here, an even more sophisticated term, below the line. And we are suggesting it's a choice, and that we'll be making that choice throughout this training. So here you have the poster. And four of the classic ways that we go below the line is we blame others instead of taking ownership. We justify our own behaviors. Who said that? That sense of feeling right, remember? In the three, somebody said in all three positions they got to be right. It was Heather. So we justify our psychological position, and then we get to feel right about it. And then holding on to resentments. That's where we hold on to these feelings we stuff. We keep stuffing it in that big bag. We carry it around so it gets heavier and heavier, all the ways we've been wronged in life and all the stuff we've stuffed. And then some poor soul finally triggers us enough, and we hit them right over the head with 30 years of resentments. And we annihilate them with it, right? Blame, resentment, justification, and being right. Can I have that other easel pad really quickly? Here's how we get above the line. We get responsible. Self-responsibility means I'm responsible for taking care of myself. I'm responsible for my own thoughts, wherever they come from, they're mine. I'm responsible for my impulses, feelings, my behaviors and actions, the consequences those actions bring to me, and the impact my actions have on others. I'm responsible for that. I'm taking responsibility for that, self-responsibility. Accountability. Accountability means I keep my agreements. I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm willing to be accountable. I'll make an agreement with you, and if I don't keep it, we'll have a discussion about it. I'm going to be accountable. I keep my agreements or I renegotiate. I don't hide out. I'm willing to be accountable. Vulnerable. Now, vulnerable may sound like being weak or something. That's not what we mean here. We mean being open, honest, direct, real. We're willing to be real. So, Marvin, if I take responsibility for my own stuff, I don't put it off on you. If I keep my agreements with you, and I'm willing to just be open and real with you, what does that create between us?
Think of the word to me.
If I keep my agreements with you, I own my own stuff, I don't put it on you, what does that create? Anybody? Trust, yeah, trust, exactly. It creates trust. And trust, we say, is what creates relationship. Authentic relationship with a capital R. So we say the above the line world is the world of relationship. And down there, blame, justification, being right are all the behaviors, and there's lots of other versions, those are just four that stand out, that erode relationship, that undermine relationship. And we're suggesting it's a choice, and if anything, all we got, somebody said, Gary, you talked about recognition, right? Whenever I recognize I'm below the line, and I acknowledge it to myself and to others, where am I? I'm above the line. That's all it takes. Just acknowledge I'm below the line, I'm back above the line. It's a choice. And not only is it a choice, I think Perna and I really feel strongly in our own experience that it's a privilege. That it's actually a privilege and an honor to live above the line. Because it's how we actually get to live not on the me program, where we play out all our childish dramas, the me story, but where we get to live in service of life, in service of others. And when we live above the line, life will start asking a lot of us. Because above the line people are a great and important and valued commodity in life. And life will start giving you things to do because we need above the line people to do things, to hold that space. So it's an honor and a privilege to live above the line. And it's not really a burden. It feels scary because when we often think of being accountable, what's the first thing you think of with the word accountability?
Work.
Responsibility, me, blame, right? In other words, who's going to get blamed, right? Hold accountable. Oh, I've been blamed enough in my life. I've been getting in trouble since I was this tall. I don't want anything to do with that. It sounds horrible. That's not what we mean by accountability. This isn't about who gets blamed. A lot of times we don't want to move into accountability because we feel it means somebody's going to get blamed. We've been conditioned that either I'm going to get blamed or you're going to get blamed. Whenever there's anything going on in life, somebody's going to get blamed, and I've been blamed enough, I don't want that anymore. So I'm going to use my adaptive strategies to hide out. I'm going to blame shift, I'm going to justify, I'm going to be right, all those things. By accountability, we're not talking about blame, we're talking about ownership. Just a sense of taking ownership for my own life. I'm responsible, I'm going to own my own life and step into this space of accountability, which for me is, even though this doesn't look like it here, maybe up there above the line, there's a nice, with the little sun up there, it's the blue sky of human life. It's where all possibility is, authentic relationship is, all the really great stuff in life is up there. Down here, we get all kinds of little emotional payoffs. We get to play our rackets out and we get our little jollies off, right? I would say, though, this is the junk food of the emotional world. This is the potato chips and candy bars of the emotional life. But the really good stuff, you know, the organic vegetables and, you know, that kind of stuff is all up above the line. The life-sustaining energies are above the line.